Welcome to Insanely True, Episode 1, Operation Paperclip. How Nazis Got America to the Moon. Okay, so here's a history hot tip for you. In the final days of World War II, as Allied forces closed in on Germany, the United States military launched a covert operation, one that would bring some of the most brilliant minds of the Third Reich to America. It was called Operation Paperclip, and if it sounds like the plot of a movie, well, it is. More on that later. Covert teams of US officers fanned out across Germany in the fall of 1945 to identify and recruit scientists and engineers whose expertise could help America win the looming Cold War against the Soviet Union. Over 1,600 scientists, some of whom had direct ties to Germany's weapons programs and even concentration camps, were quietly smuggled into the United States. Many of these men had been working on advanced rocketry, jet propulsion, ballistics, and other critical technologies for Nazi Germany, and the US wanted them on its side. The most famous of these recruits was probably Wernher von Braun, who had helped develop the V-2 rocket, the first ballistic missile in history. Von Braun and his team would go on to lead NASA's rocket program in the 1960s, helping launch the Saturn V rocket that put the first men on the moon. But it wasn't just about rockets. Experts in fields like aviation, medicine, and chemical warfare were also recruited. In fact, many of the scientists brought to America through Operation Paperclip would go on to become leaders in their fields. Some became US citizens, and many received prestigious government awards. But perhaps most shocking was that while some of the scientists recruited were high-ranking members of the Nazi Party, none of them faced war crimes trials. In fact, the US government did everything it could to cover up their activities. Backgrounds were erased, identities sanitized, and many of the scientists simply rebranded as patriots. Now you might be wondering why the US didn't just use the scientists it already had. Well, the truth is America's pool of scientists and engineers just couldn't match the expertise of those working for Germany. And that's because many of those scientists had come from Germany. See, Operation Paperclip wasn't just about bringing Nazi scientists to America. It was also about taking those scientists away from the Soviets. You see, both the US and the Soviet Union had been scouring Germany for scientists, and the US wanted to beat the Soviets to the punch. By the end of the war, the US had recruited more than 1,600 German scientists and engineers. So, what's the legacy of Operation Paperclip? Well, the very foundations of America's space and defense programs were built on the work of former Nazi scientists. And to this day, many Americans have no idea that some of NASA's founding minds once served Hitler. This has been Insanely True. Do you know any obscure history? Share it with us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more insanely true stories.